They say the road is freedom, that the world opens up to those who have the courage to go. But what if I told you that for some people, a simple ride was the beginning of the worst nightmare of their lives? Sounds exaggerated? Then maybe you've never felt the true terror of being at the mercy of a stranger. No way out, no signal, and the fear growing with every mile. Many people believe these horror stories from the road are just urban legends, but what you're about to see is real. These are accounts lived by ordinary people who, just like you, only wanted to get home. What they didn't know was that they were stepping straight into darkness, where suspense reigns and the line between life and death disappears in the rearview mirror. Get ready. These stories will challenge your sense of safety, make you think twice before trusting friendly smiles or offers of help. Because in the end, the road doesn't forgive the naive. And the truth is, evil loves to hitch a ride. A kind act turns terrifying. It was a rainy night, the kind where the sound of raindrops on the glass already brings discomfort. The driver, a young woman returning from work, saw an old lady by the roadside, soaked and shivering. Her instinct to help kicked in. She pulled over and offered a ride. Everything seemed safe, almost too calm. But fear. Oh, fear was already lurking in the shadows, disguised as empathy. During the ride, the conversation was brief. The woman spoke softly, almost whispering, staring fixedly at the horizon as if seeing something beyond human perception. When they arrived at a gas station, the elderly woman asked to use the bathroom and vanished. The driver waited nearly half an hour, but she had simply disappeared. A strange suspense lingered in the air, like something wasn't right. Back in the car, the driver made her way home, trying to rationalize what had happened. Maybe the woman got another ride. Maybe she got lost. But when she arrived at her apartment, a cold terror settled in. Her favorite blanket, the one on the back seat, was missing. And stranger still, the rear window was slightly cracked open, as if someone had opened it from the inside. That night, she got up for a glass of water and saw a shadow in the hallway. Her heart nearly leapt out of her chest. Frozen, she tried to understand what she had seen. When she gathered the courage to turn on the light, there was nothing there. But wet footprints trailed across the floor, leading into the bedroom corner. A damp, stale smell, something that didn't belong to this world, lingered in the air. She called the police, of course, but everything looked normal. Nothing was found, except for a small stain on the bedsheet, as if something had been left there on purpose. From that day on, fear became a permanent guest. Every time it rained, the terror returned. Like that encounter had opened a door that was never meant to be unlocked. Days later, while cleaning the trunk, she found something that made her blood freeze. An old photo, folded and partly torn. In it, the same old woman smiled beside a car that looked just like hers. On the back, in shaky handwriting, "I'll be back." From then on, it was all paranoia and distrust. Every noise became a warning, every shadow a threat. And the most disturbing part was that no one else remembered that woman. Not the gas station attendants, not the security cameras. It was as if she never existed. Or perhaps she exists in a way that defies human logic. But that's just the beginning. Broken vulnerability almost ends in disaster. It was supposed to be just another regular party, one of those nights that spiral out of control before the second drink. The girl, still in high school, found herself alone, wobbling on the sidewalk after her friend left with a stranger. The rain was light, but the cold was sharp, and in that moment of vulnerability, of silent terror, a car pulled up beside her. An older man with a strange smile and eyes that never blinked offered her a ride. She hesitated, of course, but the fear of being alone was stronger than the fear of accepting help. She got in, trying to act sober, but every word stumbled from her mouth. The man seemed polite, but something was off. Something in his overly slow gestures, in the long pauses between phrases. Suspense slowly crept in, almost unnoticeable, until it was impossible to ignore. He started asking uncomfortable questions. Do you have a boyfriend? Ever been with an older guy? The air grew thicker with each comment. She tried to change the subject, to act like she was in control again, but he kept leaning toward her. The smell of alcohol on his breath was strong, but what truly triggered panic was his grin, like he was savoring every second of the moment. The terror became real when he locked the doors without saying a word. And then, as if fate showed mercy, a police siren rang in the distance. The flashing blue lights appeared in the rearview mirror, and the man slowed the car, pretending everything was fine. He pulled over. The tension was suffocating, as if time had frozen. As the officer approached, the girl nearly screamed for help, but before she could, the man whispered something in her ear. "You got lucky this time." The officer noticed her condition immediately and took her home, but the fear didn't end that night. The memory of his voice, the predatory look, it stayed etched in her mind. The feeling of being at the mercy of a stranger with dark intentions was a kind of terror no therapy could ever fully erase. Every time she passed that street again, her stomach turned. Months later, she saw a news report with that man's face. He was involved in another case. This time, there was no timely intervention. The horror of realizing how close she had come to tragedy hit hard. And even though the police did their job, she knew her real salvation came down to seconds. Seconds that stood between fear and a second chance. But what if that siren had come later? What if he had locked the doors 1 minute earlier? Her life was now trapped in that what if, and the truth is, sometimes luck is the only thing between you and the end. Blackout leads to near assault. She didn't know how she got there. Her mind was blank. The lights from the night before seemed to have shut off in an instant. The college student woke up on the side of a deserted road, knees scraped, clothes wrinkled, with no sign of her phone or bag. The morning air was cold, but the real chill came from within. The fear of the unknown, the terror of not remembering anything. Time seemed suspended, and she, alone, was the perfect target for chance. Trying to stay calm, she walked until a car slowly approached. The driver, a middle-aged man, stopped and offered help. Reluctantly, she got in. At first, he seemed like just a helpful citizen, willing to take her to the nearest town, but something felt off in the silence between sentences, in his lingering glances in the rearview mirror. The suspense grew in small, creeping doses, until it was too heavy to bear. He started making strange comments. He said girls like you need to be more careful, but with a loaded tone, like he was holding something back. With every mile, his words got more invasive. He asked if anyone knew where she was. He said he knew a quieter spot where she could rest a little. The atmosphere turned into pure terror. She knew she needed to get out of that car. In a moment of desperate courage, she asked him to stop, pretending she was going to be sick. He hesitated, but pulled over. Once outside, she ran. She dove into the woods by the road, feeling branches scrape her skin. The man got out of the car and shouted for her, but she stayed hidden, her heart pounding louder than her thoughts. There, in the middle of the forest, the suspense hit its peak, and fear was the only sound, echoing inside her. She stayed there for hours. The sun was already rising when another car appeared on the road. A woman, startled to see her emerging from the woods, took her in immediately. Crying, the student explained what little she remembered. She was taken to the police, but the investigation found nothing. No plates, no name, no trace. Like a phantom, he vanished into the mist. The experience left deep scars. The blackout of the night before became trauma. The sound of tires on the road still made her flinch, and the terror of that encounter repeated every night in her dreams. always with the same ending. She couldn't run, couldn't escape, and he always found her. What she lived was more than a scare. It was a cruel reminder that when control is lost, suspense becomes suffocating and danger becomes real, all because of one night that got out of hand. But some people don't get a second chance. Chilling ride with a real serial killer? He was a backpacking artist, the kind that throws themselves onto the road with nothing but a pack on their back and a soul open to new experiences. That day in France, the weather was cloudy and the wind cut like a blade. The air already carried a silent tension, as if the world itself was trying to send a warning. When a car pulled over and the driver, a friendly man with a thick accent and a calm smile, offered him a ride. He accepted, but fear was already lurking, disguised as kindness. The conversation started off light. The driver asked about his art, the places he had traveled to, but slowly the topic turned dark. The man began talking about his ex-girlfriends. Dead ones. 3 of them are gone, he said, with a disturbing calm. Then he pulled 4 women's passports from the glove box. One by one he showed them like trophies. Suspense turned to pure terror. The road suddenly felt narrower, time slower. The artist tried to laugh it off, pretend it was a bad joke, but the driver's eyes didn't blink. There was no joke, just a sickening silence. When they turned onto a dirt road surrounded by forest, panic took hold. He thought of jumping out, but they were in the middle of nowhere. No signal, no escape route. Fear became physical, a crushing weight on his chest. Something inside him screamed, "You won't leave here." When they stopped in a clearing, the driver turned off the engine and said nothing. The artist, sweating cold, asked in a trembling voice why they had stopped. The man simply replied, "This is where they rest." The terror reached a new level. That's when the artist, trying to hide his desperation, said he felt sick and needed air. He got out of the car and ran without looking back. He didn't even know where he was going. He just knew he had to get away. He walked for hours until he found a farmhouse. When he explained what had happened, the farmer immediately called the police. Days later, the confirmation came. The man he had been with was Patrice Allegre, a wanted serial killer in France. The chill that ran down his spine at that moment was as real as death's cold touch. He almost felt on his skin. The suspense of the road was now living memory, pounding in his mind. He never hitchhiked again, never trusted the silence of strangers. His art changed. His paintings became dark, heavy with distorted human shadows. Fear now lived in the details of the canvas. The terror of that ride became the backbone of his creative expression. He survived, yes, but left a part of himself on that dark road in France. It's a night, and to this day he wonders, what would have happened if he had hesitated, if he had said the wrong thing, if he had stayed in that car just a few minutes longer. Some questions have no answers, and sometimes the most terrifying thing is knowing that evil can come with a gentle smile and a soft voice. After hearing these stories, tell me, how many times have you trusted someone just because they seemed nice? How many times have you ignored that instinct trying to warn you, that chill that came out of nowhere? The truth is harsh. Evil doesn't announce itself. It comes smiling, driving slowly, offering help. And when you realize it, it's already too late. These accounts aren't just isolated incidents. They are signs that we need to be more alert, more prepared, and far less naive. And what about you? Would you know how to escape? Or would fear paralyze you? What you've learned here could be the difference between danger and survival. Now tell me in the comments, have you ever gone through something similar? Have you ever felt like you were in danger even with no real proof? Share your story. It could help warn others too. And if this video made you see things differently, if it opened your eyes, then subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and don't miss out on the next stories that will keep you up at night